ever re-energize that. And for them, the question becomes, well, what can be done? And obviously, the idea of supporting third parties, supporting independents, not voting, has become pretty stigmatized, largely as a result of what happened, or what is perceived happened in 2000, when the perception is that Ralph Nader's candidacy siphoned off enough votes to elect George Bush. And so there's a stigma that has to be addressed, that lots of progressives have, and that the Democratic Party has deliberately enforced and entrenched to make it toxic to advocate for that. You can see why. And you know, that has to be addressed, and ultimately the calculus is going to be this, which is, you know, if all you do is ever complain about how horrible and abysmal the Democrats are, but then at the end of the day, right before the election happens, say, well, you know what, as much as I loathe you, and as disappointing as you've been, and as horrible as the things are that you've done, I'm going to give you my support because you scared me that the other alternative is just a little bit worse. And therefore, since I'll never vote Republican, you have my unconditional, undying support, no matter how much you stomp on my values, no matter how horrible the things are that you do. What you're doing is you're guaranteeing that you will always be ignored. Because why would any politician ever pay attention to somebody who says, you know what, no matter what you do, I'm going to offer you my undying support? And that's the position that so many liberals and progressives have been in, which is, you know, really finding Democratic policies to be repellent, and yet at the same time, at the end of the day, saying, well, you've convinced me that they're just a tiny little bit worse. And the only way to break that is at some point to say, well, even though I know that by abstaining or supporting a third party, I'm going to be sacrificing some of my short-term political interest. I'm going to cause a few more Republicans to be elected than otherwise might be elected. On balance, I'm willing to sacrifice my short-term interest in order to do something to subvert the stranglehold that these two parties have on the political process, because electing more Democrats, even though it's a little less scary, accomplishes nothing good, and everyone's going to have to decide for themselves when they get to that point. I think and hope that that point is pretty close, and if Obama does move to the center, as the consensus is telling him he should, and starts doing things like cutting Social Security, which they're revving up to do if they can get consensus on in a very short period of time, I think you're going to see lots and lots of progressives and Democrats, even people who hated the Naderites for abandoning the party, start to entertain those options and a lot sooner rather than later, and I hope that's the case. Yeah.